Okay, for tonight's video homework, make sure you're writing down all these problems and then writing down the 5-word secret message to prove to me that you listened. So this first problem here, thank you to the math students for letting me use your work, is solving by substitution. So this first problem here, I'm going to take this y, which is solve for y, and I'm going to replace this right into the other equation's y. So you can see they have 4x. And where that y used to be, I have 2x plus 3 inside there where the y used to be. So that 4x and 2x combine to give me 6x. Still have my plus 3, my minus 9. Subtract 3 on both sides gives me 6x equals negative 12. Divide by 6, and that gives me x equals negative 2. Half of the answer. The other answer, I take that negative 2 and I plug it in where there's an x. So I get y equals 2 times negative 2 plus 3 gives me y equals negative 4 plus 3, which is y equals negative 1. Make sure you write your answer as a coordinate. If I was to check that and plug in negative 1 here, negative 1, and negative 2 here, negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1, so negative 1 would equal negative 1. If I plug in negative 2 here, I would get negative 8 minus 1. And that would give me negative 8 minus 1, which is negative 9. So plug it in if you want to check. Alright, next problem. This one, a little bit harder with substitution. I need to take this bottom equation and solve this for y. By getting that y by itself, I subtract 5x on both sides. The first word is black. Black. So that gives me minus 5x on both sides. Y equals negative 5x plus 8. And then I take that and I substitute that into the other equation's y. So I get that 3x still there in the 4, but where that y used to be is that piece that I substitute and put right there. So I need to distribute that 4 times negative 5, 4 times 8. That gives me 3x minus 20x plus 32 equals negative 2. 3x minus 20x gives me negative 17x plus 32. Subtract 32 on both sides gives me negative 17x equals negative 34. Divide both sides by negative 17, and that gives me positive 2. To find that y, I take that equation, solve for y, plug in 2. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Negative 10 plus 8 gives me y equal negative 2. That is my coordinate. If I was to check that, 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. 6 minus 8 is negative 2. If I was to plug in 2 here, 5 times 2 is 10. 10 minus 2 with that y there would be 8. So that point would work also. Alright, next problem is solving a linear system of inequalities. The second word is flash. Flash. So for this, I need to solve both for y. First one a little more complicated. Take away 2x on both sides. Bring down the negative y, the inequality. This gives me negative 2x plus 1. Here when I divide by negative 1, because that is the opposite of timesing by negative 1, dividing everything by negative 1 makes that y positive, makes that negative 2x divided by negative 1 positive. 1 divided by negative 1 is negative. The inequality switches from more than to less than. So that equation is y less than positive 2x minus 1. Second equation, subtract x on both sides. And those go away and give me y greater than or equal to negative x plus 2. Now they're both ready to graph. The third word is puppy. Puppy. So for this, negative 1 is my y-intercept. I'm going to move this down. Whoops. Let's go back a slide. From this negative 1, I'm going to use the slope, which is 2 over 1 right here. I'm going to go up 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1. That is less than, so I shade below. That is less than the plane inequality, so I draw a dotted line. It's not going to be a solid line, less than. So below. So this one gives me negative x plus 2, go up to 2 on my y-axis. Negative 1 over 1 is my slope, so from there down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. That is a solid line because of this line underneath the inequality. And more than or equal to, shades above. Of these four areas of the graph, this is the area that works. You can see the overlapping lines. They even chose a point 3, 2 in the double shaded zone. If you were to check that, 2 times 3 is 6. Plug in 2 here. 6 minus 2 is bigger than 1. 4 is bigger than 1. If I plug in 3 here, 2 here, that would give me 5. 5 is also larger than 2. So that 0.32 satisfies both inequalities. Next problem. This one asks, which is parallel? Parallel lines have the same slope but different y-intercepts. This one has a slope of negative 1/2. I go down 1 over 2. That has a slope of negative 1/2. Negative 1 for my rise, 2 for my run is negative 1/2. This one is not circled because this one has the same slope but the same y-intercept. That's the same line. Don't pick that. These two are bad because they're not negative 1/2. This is the only one that works because it has a negative 1/2 for my slope and a different y-intercept. This one would start at 3, go down over 2, down 1 over 2, would be a parallel line never touching through the y-intercept of 3. So that one at the bottom is the parallel choice. Next one. This one says, which is perpendicular? So this slope is down 1 over 3. So I'm looking at not the same slope of this, down 1 over 3, negative 1 over 3. Don't pick that one. I'm looking for the negative reciprocal. So if I take this slope, negative 1/3, which is the slope right here, and I flip it, so it's not only flipped, so the 3 comes up on top and the negative 1 comes on the bottom, but I also do the opposite. So opposite negative reciprocal. So this flip-flopped and made positive would be 3 over 1. The only graph down here that has 3 over 1 in front of x is this bottom one right here. So that's the one they circled. That is the one perpendicular. That 3 over 1 is the opposite reciprocal of negative 1/3. That is the perpendicular line. If I was to graph that from here at 1 over 1 up 3 over 1 up 3 will give me a perfect 90-degree angle line. The third or the fourth word is down, down. All right, next one. This one's a little harder because it says which line or this line I'm giving you, is it parallel to this blue line or is this equation perpendicular? So you can't tell until you solve it for y. So take away 2x on both sides, bring down the 6y, bring down the negative 2x minus 36, divide everything by 6, and you can see when I reduce that down to negative 1/3, negative 2 over 6 reduces down to negative 1/3. That is the equivalent slope with a different y-intercept. That would be down here at negative 6 over 3 down 1 would be again a parallel line with the same slope of negative 1 over 3 but with a different y-intercept of negative 6. That equation is parallel. Good choice, math students. Last one. This one asks if it's perpendicular or parallel. That should be or. The fifth word is water, water. So for this one, when I divide, I get 4x minus y equals negative 2. Divide everything by negative 1. That gives me positive y. Positive 4x, negative 2. This one has a slope of negative 1/4. If I take negative 1/4 and flip it and make it positive, that becomes 4 over 1. So yes, that is a perpendicular line. If I was to graph this, negative 2 over 1 up 4 over 1 up 4 would be a 90-degree angle across that blue line would be perpendicular. So again, negative 1/4, the opposite reciprocal is 4 over 1. All right, good luck. Turn this in on Monday.